Good morning. My name is Gilbert Anaya. I'm the Division Chief of the Environmental Management Division for the U.S. section of the International Boundary and Water Commission. I have the pleasure of introducing the moderator for this next session, which is the Colorado River Agreement, which is under IBWC minute number 323. Sally is the Secretary of the U.S. section of the International Boundary and Water Commission. She manages the Foreign Affairs and Public Affairs Office, and she is the person that is responsible for providing policy advice to our commissioner and coordinating with the Mexican section of the IBWC and the Department of State. I've worked with her 18, 19 years at IBWC. Please help me welcome Sally Spiener.
Thank you, Gilbert. The International Boundary and Water Commission, United States and Mexico, is just that, an international commission. And we have a parallel structure with the Mexican section of the commission. And my Mexican counterpart is here with us today, Jesus Luevano, the Mexican secretary. You can wave Jesus, and he's a great partner for the commission and is also a key person in the success of Minute 323 and all of the agreements that we have between the two sections of the commission. I'm going to give you a little bit of background information and then move into our speakers who are going to elaborate on some key aspects of our Colorado River Agreement. Under the 1944 Water Treaty, the United States delivers 1.5 million acre-feet of Colorado River water per year to Mexico, except in the event of extraordinary drought. We heard earlier a perspective of we have a choice, doom or gloom. And I think that what we're going to show you today with this Colorado River Agreement is that there is another path. Officials with the International Boundary and Water Commission, United States and Mexico, on September 21st, 2017, signed a Colorado River Agreement known as Minute number 323, called Extension of Cooperative Measures and Adoption of a Binational Water Scarcity Contingency Plan in the Colorado River Basin. It's a pretty complex agreement, and it has lots of different parts. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview, and I know that our speakers are going to be highlighting certain aspects of the agreement. The agreement, which will remain in effect through 2026, extends or replaces key elements of a prior agreement, Minute 319, which was a 5-year pilot program. We signed it in 2012, and it expired at the end of 2017. Minute 323 contains the following key provisions. It allows Mexico to defer delivery of a portion of its Colorado River allotment in the event of potential emergencies, such as earthquakes, or as a result of water conservation projects in Mexico. This water, known as Mexico's water reserve, could then be delivered to Mexico subsequently as determined by Mexico through its planning process. It provides additional quantities of Colorado River water to Mexico during certain high elevation reservoir conditions. It establishes proactive basin operations during certain low elevation reservoir conditions at Lake Mead by applying water delivery reductions in order to deter more severe reductions in the future. It establishes a binational water scarcity contingency plan so that if the U.S. lower basin states adopt the lower basin drought contingency plan in the United States, then Mexico will also undertake water savings in parity with the savings in the United States. It implements measures to address salinity impacts stemming from the joint cooperative actions and identifies measures to address daily flow variability in Colorado River water deliveries to Mexico. It also provides water for the environment and funding for environmental restoration and monitoring. And finally, it provides U.S. investment in water infrastructure and environmental projects in Mexico in order to modernize and improve the Mexicali irrigation district. This will generate additional volumes of water that will be shared between both countries and the environment in accordance with the terms of the minute. So it's a very interesting and innovative agreement. I know Commissioners Salmon and Drusina and I, as well as our other participants, have had the opportunity to speak about this agreement in many different places, including in the Rio Grande Basin. And I think people are always intrigued by what we've accomplished on the Colorado River, and it gets people thinking about how what we've done in the Colorado River with this cooperative effort could possibly be applied in other basins, not just in the United States, but around the world. Mr. Archuleta asked us earlier to keep our introductions brief of our speakers, and I will remind you that their full biographies are available in your program. But our first speaker is Edward Drusina. He was appointed United States Commissioner of the International Boundary and Water Commission in January of 2010. He has a long and distinguished career in both the public sector, federal government, local government, as well as the private sector, and I wanted to highlight one particular aspect of his private sector experience. He was both a senior project engineer and corporate associate with MCI, where he served as the construction manager for the off-site infrastructure for the world's largest inland desalination plant. So it's kind of like you're coming home in some respects, back at the desal plant. Anyway, Commissioner Drusina is going to be talking about U.S. perspectives on Minute 323.
Well, thank you, Sally. And let me just start off, as I have for the last 8 years in a lot of different cities across the Southwest. It is a beautiful day here in El Paso, Texas. So what is the U.S. perspective? Keep in mind that my views are going to be a compilation of state, local, and federal perspectives, but it is a U.S. perspective. In many ways, the Minute 323 is the most recent attempt to try to manage risk in the Colorado River Basin. The risk is shared by the United States and Mexico between us as well as U.S. basin states, the 7 states. While we had very good science and engineering leading up to Minute 323, possibly our greatest challenge was in building trust. But before I go any further into the U.S. perspective, let me give you a very brief description of the U.S. IBWC's, or the IBWC's history and the authorities that we use. The IBWC executes all of its initiatives, all of its activities based on the U.S.-Mexico treaties. And so we trace our roots to the end of the Mexican-American War with the signing of the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty in 1848. The treaty, alongside with the Gadsden Purchase, led the two countries to establish the International Boundary Commission. And that was founded in order to set the boundary along our border. Approximately 40 years later, after years of disputes between the United States and Mexico, we agreed to establish a permanent commission in 1889. The Treaty of 1906 gave the commission its first responsibility regarding water, and that was to deliver to Mexico 60,000 acre-feet per year to be delivered to the Sequia Madre. Some of you probably know that's just on the west side of El Paso. Then in 1944, the modern-day commission was established by treaty and called for the U.S. to deliver 1.5 million acre-feet to Mexico along the Colorado River, and along the Rio Grande to deliver 350,000 acre-feet per year over a 5-year average. The IBC became the IBWC under the 44 Treaty and also gave us very specific staffing requirements, which we maintain today. The Commission was also given the authority to interpret treaties and to formalize those interpretations through binationally approved documents we called minutes. Once a minute is approved by the IBWC and the State Department in the United States and the Secretariat of Foreign Relations in Mexico, it becomes a formal obligation and carries the force of the treaty. Very unique in this treaty. The mission of the United States section of the IBWC is to provide binational solutions to issues that arise during application of United States and Mexico treaties regarding boundary demarcation, national ownership of water, sanitation, water quality, and flood control along the border region. So what is the U.S. perspective of Minute 323? What is the risk we are trying to manage? And what follows when 323 ends in 2026? Well, many of us saw the risk over the last few presentations. The Colorado River Basin has been in severe drought for the past 18 years. I think most of you will remember the news reports of communities in California 2 years ago when many water reservoirs across the state were drying up. And the state was actually rationing water. While we received some relief in the form of heavy precipitation in 2016, the drought continues today. Snowpack in the upper Colorado River Basin as of early February is at 64% of average. As of February 5th, our snowpack was the worst on record, even worse than 2002, when the lowest year for water inflows into Lake Mead actually occurred, Lake Powell, when they actually occurred. So, with this condition developing in the basin, in order to avoid conflict with Mexico, we decided to work with Mexico to find a way that we could both take proportional reductions. For over a decade prior to 2016, the driving question in our mind was what can we do to reduce the impact that this virtually certain drought was going to have on the United States and correspondingly to Mexico. We were facing a very real possibility of having mandatory reductions in water deliveries in the lower Colorado River for the first time in history. So despite all water conservation measures in the lower Colorado River Basin, the forecasts of just a few years ago showed Nevada and Arizona facing a potential 333,000 acre-foot reduction in 2018. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to brief many of our country's lawmakers on all of the Colorado River minutes leading up to 323, and now most recently on 323. I have consistently framed it as a cooperative measure to protect both the United States and Mexico's interest in this critically important river system. It is well understood throughout our country that the drought in the western United States is a serious concern due to the impact the drought has been having on the western U.S., and I have been able to impart with more clarity how Minute 323 is the next step in a long process that gives us some relief, and how through the minutes leading up to 323, the storing of water in Lake Mead by Mexico and the United States has saved us from going into federally mandated stages of shortage. Minute 323 is a matter of protection against the risk. What we have grown accustomed to is being able to turn on the faucet, as all of us do, and the water's going to come out. To have industry know that when their process demands certain volumes of water, it's there to meet their demands, and they can keep the machinery of the country running. It means agriculture is meeting the private and public expectations, and that the ecology of the basin is protected in a way that future generations will be able to enjoy the same wonders that we all have had since our nation's founding. To clearly look at the Minute 323, you must take into consideration what is the obvious interest. 3 million people depend on the river for economic and household needs. The river irrigates 5.5 million acres of land, produces 15% of the nation's crops and about 13% of its livestock. Arizona State University calculated not too long ago that the river contributes 1/12 of the nation's GDP. Others have calculated that the 7 basin states, when you take the whole state into consideration, it produces 19% of the United States gross domestic product. Enormous value. To give you some perspective as to how we have been working to address developing issues in the Colorado River that could impact our treaty commitments, we have produced a series of minutes. Minute 242 primarily focused on salinity. 316 focused on providing water to the Yuma Desalt plant. 317, 18, and 19 were all building blocks to Minute 323. So what are the Minute 323 benefits? It provides certainty for water planning purposes, especially during shortage conditions. The 44 treaty does not define extraordinary drought, and that's a very important point. But so that creates uncertainty. By agreeing upon shortages through 323, we can avoid conflict that might otherwise occur. It provides water benefits to the United States in exchange for investment in conservation projects in Mexico. Mexico and the basin derive the long-term effects of the conservation projects, while the United States funders receive the water benefits. It provides environmental benefits to both countries, since environmental water flows through the river's boundary segment. The Minute provides for habitat restoration sites that are linked to restoration sites in the United States. Important point, the ecosystem knows no boundaries. Another benefit is that Mexico's water storage in the lake under Minute 318 and 319 has boosted the reservoir's elevation by 2 to 3 feet. forestalling shortages in the lower basin. And then another benefit that I was able to think through is that the cooperation with Mexico helps both countries work towards the long-term sustainability of the basin. What if we didn't have 323? What would happen? Uncertainty, especially over how reductions in Mexico might be implemented during drought. Potential conflict, not only between the United States and Mexico, but possibly also involving the basin states. Degradation of habitat restoration sites, since there would be no environmental agreement in place. And what would happen? Reduced investment in water conservation projects, detracting from the long-term sustainability of the basin. So what happens following 323? Well, Minute 323 only provides us with a higher level of confidence that we can manage the impacts of the drought through 2026. New science and technology considerations will have to be weighed at that time to find ways to protect us moving forward. Minutes 316, 317, 318, 319, and 323 built trust and solidified our cooperative relationship with Mexico in the Colorado River Basin. I might also add that we're taking a lot of the lessons that we've learned from the Colorado River Basin and applying them to the Rio Grande Basin. Perhaps during the Q&A we might delve a little more deeply into that. But keeping in mind that my friend here, Commissioner Salmon, and I have been very successful over the last 8 years, I see nothing but a very bright future for our relationship moving forward, not only continuing the work that we've done in the Colorado River, but also developing new long-term commitments on the Rio Grande. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ducina. Our next presenter is Roberto Salmon Castelo, the Mexican Commissioner of the International Boundary and Water Commission. And for those of you who got up early, you heard his introductory remarks about the importance of water issues along the U.S.-Mexico border. He has a wide range of experience in water projects. He was Northwest Regional Manager of the National Water Commission, CONAGUA, from 2002 to 2006, and from then until 2008, when he was appointed IBWC Commissioner, he served as General Manager of the Northwest Basin Unit based in Hermosillo, Sonora. He also has a wide range of academic experience that he brings to his activities as Commissioner of the Mexican section. Commissioner Salmon?
Thank you, Sally. Yo quiero empezar mi intervención haciendo el comentario de que el abasto de agua para la zona norte del estado de Baja California y la zona noroeste del estado de Sonora dependen en gran medida de las aguas del río Colorado. Y de estas aguas, por el Tratado de 1944, a México se le reconoce el derecho a una asignación de 1.850 millones de metros cúbicos anuales. Tomando en consideración que las condiciones de la cuenca del río Colorado, como ya lo mencionó el comisionado Ducina, estaban experimentando un descenso continuo de los almacenamientos en las principales presas del sistema del Colorado desde el año 2000, es decir, desde hace 18 años, excepto en dos contadas ocasiones, los almacenamientos en las presas Lago Mead, Lago Powell, han venido descendiendo considerablemente. Por esta razón, México consideró que era conveniente involucrarse más en el tema del agua del río Colorado y también en conocer con mayor claridad y con mayor detalle las condiciones de la cuenca. Sin embargo, en la primera mitad de la década de 2010 se presentaron condiciones en la zona de Mexicali que causaron aspereza en la relación bilateral. Y para mejorar esta situación, para tratar de paliar la situación que existía entre los dos países, los dos gobiernos, en el año 2007, emitieron una declaración conjunta para establecer dentro del marco de la SILA, dentro del marco de la Comisión, un proceso bilateral de diálogo, o sea, sentarnos en la mesa para determinar, identificar acciones que pudieran beneficiar a ambos países. Debido a este proceso, se tuvo la capacidad de salir de un periodo de conflicto para entrar en una etapa de diálogo, de cooperación, que abarca ya 10 años. O sea, tenemos 10 años sentados en una mesa dialogando constantemente. Prácticamente tenemos reuniones mensuales y eso ha sido capaz de producir 5 actas de la SILA que han avanzado la relación entre los dos países en la cuenca del río Colorado para lograr acuerdos que hace 10 años ninguno de los dos países hubieran considerado o hubieran imaginado que se podían lograr. Y como ya lo hemos mencionado en otras ocasiones, este ha sido un proceso de aprendizaje que con la confianza y la buena voluntad de las partes se han creado los equipos técnicos binacionales que, sustentados en conocimientos científicos, han proporcionado los fundamentos necesarios que necesitamos para tomar decisiones. Aunque las condiciones de la cuenca del río Colorado han tenido una pequeñísima mejora en los últimos días, en un año que pintaba para ser uno de los peores en la historia, la situación se sigue presentando preocupante. Y si esta situación continúa deteriorándose, afectará por igual manera a los dos países. Y en el caso del Colorado, como lo mencioné hace algunas horas cuando estaba aquí haciendo los comentarios iniciales, en el Colorado el agua no es un tema que nos separa. El agua es un tema que nos está uniendo y nos une para estudiar y analizar el tema en su conjunto y buscar soluciones de manera conjunta, de manera binacional. La postura del Gobierno de México desde el 2008 ha sido la de apoyar estos esfuerzos de cooperación. Las acciones que se han considerado en el Acta 323 son acciones que ven hacia el futuro, o sea, no se detienen en la situación actual. Tratan de prevenir condiciones catastróficas y anticipan también estas condiciones adversas y nos presentan con una carretera, con un camino de las decisiones que habremos que tomar y plantea las acciones que pueden evitar, mitigar o retrasar que la cuenca llegue a tener un colapso. Lo que hemos hecho en el Colorado, como ya también se mencionó por el comisionado Drusina y por Sally, se ha difundido en muchos otros países y es una muestra, es un ejemplo de lo que podemos hacer cuando trabajamos en un espíritu de cooperación y de confianza mutua. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Commissioner Salmon. Our next speaker is Jennifer Pitt. She joined Audubon in December of 2015, but she did similar work with environmental defense for many, many years before that. And at Audubon, she advises the organization's strategies to protect and restore rivers throughout the Colorado River Basin. She also serves as the U.S. co-chair of the Minute 323 Binational Environmental Work Group, whose partners will, through 2026, implement the Minute 323 commitments, providing environmental flows and habitat creation. So she's been a partner in the development as well as implementation of Minute 323. Jennifer?
Thank you so much, Sally. And commissioners, thank you for the invitation to join you on this panel. It is always my pleasure to work with you. I was asked to speak about the NGO involvement in the process, which I guess is fairly unique given that we're talking about treaties between sovereign nations, and I'm talking about civil society. But we have played a big role. Before I get going, though, I need to ground you in what we're talking about, because you guys are all Texas people. We're talking about the Colorado River Basin, which the map here shows you incorporates parts of 7 states in the western U.S., although not Texas, drains about 250,000 square miles, provides water to more than 36 million people. Commissioner Dracena went through some of this. I am focused, particularly in this discussion, about the delta of the Colorado River, which effectively today begins at Morelos Dam, which is the farthest downstream dam on the river. So that's what's circled there in the map, and you can see we have about 23 miles of river on the international boundary between Arizona and Baja California, and then the river continues on down into Mexico and drains into the upper Gulf of California. So what was the NGO involvement in the process? And I thought this would be a good way to start. We went to a lot of meetings. Well, that's true, but actually we started in the late 90s, the environmental community focusing on the delta of the Colorado River, which is dry, right? We've overallocated the Colorado River and overused it in the United States. And the delta has not seen